go. Here we go. Quantum bombs.
Quantum bombs.
That was loud.
There we go.
Wow. What is this?
Finally.
Episode 7. Does anyone even care? Welcome, everybody, to episode number 7. Oh, my gosh. I'm so excited to have this man sitting across from me just giving me a nice smirk. Rex is back.
Quantum bombs.
Wow.
Hey,
That's
Russell found the button.
No, that was a mistake.
okay. Let's see. So, you know what? I think we're going to do quite a bit of gibber and jabbering. I wanted to jump into some discussion today about religion because everyone loves that topic. But Rex is back from his travels. He's got lots to share.
I just drove 6,700 miles in 5 weeks. And things that came to mind, number one was, as I was driving, Russell's quote of, "Why is it more comfortable to slouch?" came to mind a great deal as I corrected my posture quite a bit driving.
And aren't you glad that gas prices are cheap?
Oh, my gosh. It cost me over $500 to get from here to Massachusetts.
Wow. That white car?
Oh God, you're right.
No, in the Ram.
The crack
pickup
mobile.
truck.
Whose truck? I've never seen you drive a truck.
I drive I don't
Oh, that
drive it
Dodge. Yeah, okay, yeah.
here. Yes.
And yeah, let's have fun with Matt. That white car Russell's referring to is, Matt's got the explosives company. That's his company car that he provides.
Look, Rex
Good.
was whining to me about putting wear and tear on his own vehicle, so I bought that thing out of the junkyard. Isn't that where we got it from?
No, it should be. It someone looked at it and said, "How many people died in the crash?" No, it was a very inexpensive car because it's a dirt road here. I was driving my pickup truck back and forth. I go between 3 places all day long on this dirt road, putting a lot of, because my truck is long haul. I've nothing but freeway miles. So Matt was kind enough to buy me a very cost-effective.
All right. I just
Thank
wanted
you,
to
Rex.
give
And I pay for the flats, and I pay for the windshields.
Okay. Well, just don't
he's
tell
the-
anybody it's a company car. Anyway,
No,
back
no.
to the story. 6,700 miles.
No,
Rex
it's-
didn't tell you he loves to drive. He doesn't actually fly anywhere. When we fly, he will drive.
I love driving. It is awesome.
Me too.
One of the cool, not non-politically correct things I did was I crossed Lake Michigan on the Badger, the SS Badger, which is the last coal-fired car ferry in the country. And I've got video. I don't have it ready, but it's like I figure, well, they've got all kinds of scrubbers and whatnot. No, it just belches black coal smoke out of the smokestack down the lake. It's just it's pretty darn cool. And I bet some.
I bet there's a special permit for that.
Well, it's a floating historic monument, national monument. So I think
so they can't touch it.
that basically they can't.
What
They say
state?
it goes between Wisconsin and Michigan. I don't know who claims it, but it goes across Lake Michigan. But it was just cool to see, and I mean, and you can get the grit in your teeth from that.
From coal?
Oh, yeah,
Coal smoke? Wow. I mean, I was going to say it sounds romantic to picture that coal going in the air. I know that sounds also bad. But still, it reminds you of older days.
Exactly. No, I took some video of the chimney and then followed it, or the smokestack rather, and followed it back, and you could see just trailing off over the lake. It was exactly romantic. It really, really was. But it's a fairly modern looking ship. It's from 1953. But anyway. Sorry, we're losing Matt already.
Well, you did this because Matt gave this speech about how you should quit your job, and like you went and you're like, you know what, I'm going to go do this big money job out of state without Matt.
You got to explain, Rex, that you didn't quit.
I did
you
not
didn't
quit.
get fired.
Did not fire. No, I know that came up. Oh, and thank you for also keeping me alive and trying to get me thrown under the bus for the blowing up the
guide stones.
The guide stones.
Hey, I didn't want to
You
be
didn't do that?
the stupid one. Can you tell me what the guide stones are? I
I can tell you all about them, but let's let Rex keep going.
No, we go ahead and you can explain that. But I watched the podcast when I wasn't there, and then Russell's like, Rex isn't here, and by the way, he knows about explosives and the guide stones blew up. And the sad thing is, I was between locations when that happened. I realized, so I can't even say, oh no, I was going between upstate New York and Chicago. I was on the road when that happened. I was like, I don't have anyone to vouch for me where I was.
You'd be a great person to pin it on.
Well, Russell already did.
Yeah, I thought I did a pretty good job laying out the case for.
Okay, so what are the guide stones? What was blown up?
So I found this out a few years ago when a friend told me about the Atlanta airport, which is another topic. There's these things in our country that are kind of strange, and the Georgia Guidestones are one of them. And they almost look prophetic. No one knows exactly who paid for the Guidestones, and what they are these monuments made out of stone that tell us basically they lay out a road for a proper way to maintain the future. So keep the Earth's population below 500 million. There's a certain court that's supposed to be held that's like a world court. It's very much like a world government system, and it's very much involved with keeping the population in check so that we don't overcrowd the place. And
500
actually,
million's the max.
so we're at the Georgia Guidestones say that we should not exceed 500 million. What is the world population?
Rex
8 billion.
is so
Oh, wow.
pro. Rex is so pro Georgia Guidestones. He would never blow them up. He's so
true.
for a small population. Okay, but what else? I think I know what you're talking about, but then this doesn't sound
What's
like them.
interesting about
what else
well, no,
are they
that-
about
that is
besides population? It's a stone. It's
It's-
like a rock
well-
monument that's about population.
It's about population control and how to conduct ourselves on this earth so in a sustainable manner in a one world government, basically. And it's interesting because a fund was put aside for maintaining it. There's actually a fence around it. Somebody gets money once a month to go out and mow the grass and keep it up, but nobody really knows where it came from. I kind of like some of the things on it, but at the same time, I think a lot of freedoms go out the window with that. Every time I hear one world government or globalism and committee, I feel like there ain't much room for the individual there. At least that's the way it sounds like to me.
To me, the word sustainable doesn't go with one world government or just like an overall governmental thought, right? Those two things are opposing because sustainable, the only way you can have anything be sustainable is be local, right? Like local farmers.
Oh, no, they use
stuff like
that all the time. That's common sense.
You have to
sustainable.
be, but sustainable means really like localized. If you try to look into all the things that are sustainable in life, it's all about being local and regional.
The things that are actually
But if you're
sustainable.
applying a law for the whole world, that means the whole law would have to be flexible the whole way around the world. So it wouldn't, again, it's like opposing ideas.
It's a ploy to get power. It's like we're going to do
I
this
see. So
under the
someone
guise
put up-
of sustainability. We're going to have you shut this down. We're going to limit this over here, like what they're doing with the farmers, where you're going to have to cut off your production because it's not sustainable. Whereas you and I talk about sustainability, it's on a small scale and it actually makes sense. But on the large scale, it's weaponizing that word because who could be against it? It's like if I wanted to take a place over, I come in and say, guys, I'm for the children, and I'm doing this in the name of our children's future. Who's against me? Who would stand up and say, well, I hate the children, I'm against the children? Nobody. So by saying you're for sustainability, you're already you're using weapon of words so that it's very hard for people to stand up and go against you because you're for sustainability.
You would be really good at naming legislation because if you read like the titles of the bills,
gosh.
they're-
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And they're nothing.
like the Patriot Act, you know.
Right.
Or even gun laws that are like child protection acts. And
Well, who could be against the Child Protection Act?
Of course not. Of course not. But
Go ahead, but
anyway,
Rex.
But yeah,
I
let's
don't
not
want
go-
to derail from his story.
But no, I don't know what you wanted to go. I mean, again, we could talk about the gentleman that I spoke to, who I ran a few things up. But you know what? Here's something I want to, first of all, as I pointed out, is that Russell waited till I was out of town before he gave away gifts.
Wasn't that nice?
I know. But
He's like, I've had these gifts too. He waited for you to be gone to actually
before he passed
distribute.
them out, exactly. Well, I've brought gifts from my trip, but I'm not going to wait. I'm even going to give one to Russell. But I wanted to. I came across a place in Tennessee called Lewis Country Store, and I guess it's been on the news, particularly Fox News, and it's just it doesn't mince words as to where it stands. And I took some pictures of the sign on the front door. It says Lewis County Store front door, attention, our freedom doesn't end where your fear begins. It says, if you are scared, stay at home. If you are afraid to be within 6 feet of another person, please do not enter this business. And below that, it says, anyone or any government entity that attempts to interfere with our livelihood will be met with a level of resistance necessary to defend our basic human right of survival. That's on that's on the front of a store. So
I guess they're
Welcome.
packing.
well, oh gosh, no kidding. But
Welcome.
while I was there, now unfortunately, I'm sorry, all they had was large and extra large left. But so you have but there was a small, but I said Beth couldn't wear a small because she's so voluptuous. So
That is-
anyway,
So what is this?
Rex,
a large?
I wear a
large-
small.
these are all large.
I
What?
wear a small and an extra small.
Do you really?
Yeah.
Well, now you've got something to sleep in. Much is it-
I'm vaccinated.
Oh my god!
I'm identifying
as vaccinated. Oh wow! So
I'll
guys, we're holding.
right now, huh?
Well, okay. So I'm putting the camera on me. That's why I'm talking into it. I'm holding up I'm identifying as vaccinated, and for those listening, it's a needle in the middle, horizontal, and inside the needle, it like not quietly, it secretly, or what is the word I'm looking for? It's very hard to see. It says identifying as. So from afar, it looks like you're saying I'm vaccinated, and you're like what is it called, a virtue signaler?
Matt's gonna don that T-shirt right now.
There goes the model.
Speaking of, if you'd like a T-shirt that says "Your freedom" or my freedom doesn't end where your fear begins. You can go to Beth.tv and get any kind of cool T-shirts that are spiritual or,
Yeah, you stole her merch thunder right there.
No, I didn't. Did I?
No,
Just
no. When he told me that sign, I was like, "That's a shirt waiting to happen."
Oh,
Look at that, and it compliments your guns.
I'm identifying as vaccinated. Well,
And
thank
it's
you
a
very
large.
much, Rex.
Well,
That
thank you.
definitely could have fit into the
Well,
next levels.
I didn't know.
That's
It's
cool.
'cause you're
No,
kinda-
I do
you're
love
kinda-
how men
you're
don't
kinda-
know how women's
You're,
bodies
well, you're
are.
kind of busty, I mean, so I didn't want
you.
to.
so there's some magatard out there with a store with this propaganda.
A magatard.
Here we go. The Russell Devil's Advocate. Here we go. Yes, and I bought you a gift there. Is what I'm saying.
Okay.
No, it is. No, it's an awesome place.
Hey, that Magatard. I mean, he's got such good branding. It made it on talk on quantum bombs. I mean, it worked.
And not quite as important as quantum bombs. It was on Fox News. So.
I love you, Rex.
Not quite as important.
So anyway, but I was just impressed by that. That they're just no nonsense, and I thought that was pretty cool. Anyway, but
Well, I like the part where they say we're going to defend that.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, you're basically saying, come here and try to take this away. We're going to shoot you in the face.
come and take it.
Wow.
It's the good old come and take it.
Come and take what? Their store?
Well, but you know what? There are how many places did shut down? How many places were not allowed to
Oh,
fly? Basically, if someone came to them and said, "You need to shut down. You're not pushing mask. Everyone's not wearing mask in here," they would have said, "Do not interfere with our business."
Yeah, you know what? I don't want to get too bogged down. Rex was talking to me earlier. He's got a lot of good stories from his travels. So keep going, Rex.
Okay. Well, do you want to go to? All right. The gentleman. There is someone who I will not say who it is, but someone who I kind of run things by whenever I manage to be in his presence. And first thing I was talking about AI, and he is someone who knows. And the quote I will say is that within our lifetimes, we have absolutely nothing to fear from AI. And I won't say how, but I'm just saying that he is someone who knows that it's not an issue. And if you want to go past that, when we talked about a few things, and I said, so you're taking away everything to be afraid of? And he said, oh, you want to be afraid of something? And first thing he said, meteors, comets, don't worry about it. That's something we have contingency plans for. He said, volcanoes. Said, there is absolutely nothing we can do about a volcano. And he's not even talking planet killers. He said, every 200 years, and the last one was 1815, a volcano so big will erupt that it will blanket the earth in ash to the point that it cools it so that there will not be a summer growing season.
So there's three topics, and we're going to go down the last one. Can we start and go in order? AI, and then you mentioned a comet, which begs the question, like, what the heck is their contingency plan?
Blow it up, I imagine.
Yeah,
Then you just turn like a single projectile into a shotgun coming at you.
Not
'cause it doesn't-
necessarily. What if you use it like a tennis ball? You blow up next to it and you change its trajectory.
Okay, I
But
mean,
here we go to consider the source. All right, we're talking about like
That's a pretty good one,
about
Matt.
about Bitcoin. I'll talk to you. If I want to talk about comets and how to deal with them, I'll talk to the gentleman of whom I'm speaking.
Okay, I
So,
guess.
no, what I'm just saying is that this is a guy who knows what he's talking about. And I imagine our defense against comets and asteroids is not foolproof, but we at least have things we can do as opposed to volcanoes for which we have absolutely nothing we can do.
Actually, I heard of a way we can combat the volcano, but we're not doing it fast enough. And I think it makes a lot of sense.
where you just you
Well,
wanna go-
what's the problem?
she wants-
Well, because y'all went straight back to volcano, I thought we were at least going to stay
well,
on,
we still had to go back to
on the
AI.
asteroid. But I was thinking we were going to AI.
I'm sorry. I had a beer. I'm not thinking right.
No,
Go
it's
ahead.
okay. But actually,
Matt with
I
the beer
don't
is
want to
very
just
fun.
pass over what cool thing Matt did say, which was to Russell, which is instead of shooting the comet like we think we would do, thanks to that awful show Armageddon with whatever Bruce Willis or whatever, is that you would blow it up like a tennis ball next to it, and so the shockwave from the explosion nearby.
I would think in space where anything can happen. I mean, if you pour water out, it just stays in little droplets, and you can push one, and they move away. If you were to shoot a gun in outer space, you would move away, and the bullet would move away. So if we set a nuke off next to a comet, that blast wave would cause its trajectory to change. It's going to cause a new vector, and maybe we could do that in such a way that it misses the planet Earth.
Why not
like
just
zero gravity.
Why not just put a thruster on it,
Or that.
a tiny one,
Yeah.
and it lights up and just thrust for we catch it early enough, it could thrust for like a whole week, and as it's pushing it, every little bit it pushes is just
changing.
another degree.
Yeah.
But then you've got the difference of blowing up something next to it or actually getting to it and implanting a thruster. I imagine it's easier just to set off a detonation.
Well, the thruster could be the whole craft
Hit
that.
it and then
Well, true.
Just imagine like an AI craft with no person. It's going to be sacrificial, and it's a rocket. It gets sent up, and it just goes out there, and it. And,
Not in our lifetime.
And instead of impacting it hard, it impacts it slow so it doesn't damage itself. So it makes contact, and then it kicks on and starts pushing on it. Maybe it could have arms that come out. I don't know.
I'll let him know.
You know, I just
Appreciate
feel
it.
like we have such short-sighted memories, guys. I mean, if we rewind back to episode 1 when we were on the Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, the aliens already told us, you know, we learned in that documentary that they will help us in the event of global disaster like a comet coming. So we don't need to rely on our weapons. We could actually just all meditate and tell the aliens, like, yo, send it that way.
Well, you know that old Tom Lehrer song about having the bomb? He talks about Israel, and he says, "The Lord is our shepherd," says the psalm, but just in case, we better have a bomb.
yeah, I like that.
It's like, you know, it'd be nice. We can hope the aliens help us, but just in case.
No, yeah, I do think they'd help if we failed. And yeah, but I don't think we'd fail because, like Matt's saying, it's pretty dang easy to detonate something. But how often do we detonate things in space, if ever?
Well, we did. Yeah,
did a
yeah.
lot.
We definitely set a lot off in outer space. That's
Like
how we
what?
found out about the
Nuclear
EMP.
bombs.
Yeah, we've set over 2,000 nukes off since World War II.
In outer space.
No, in all over the world and outer space.
Yeah.
But, well, the reason I only care about outer space because the atmosphere is different. Like what you're saying, like we're taking it so lightly. But like you said, like if it was a drop of water and it's floating and you just touched it with your pinky finger or index finger, it might travel for 1,000 miles from that one touch, right?
Yeah, but
So-
see, Earth is a lot bigger than the comet that was. I mean, I guess if an Earth-sized comet was coming, I don't know. We're kind of
Forget it.
screwed. But you know, if there's one the size of
Whoa,
what was that?
Russell.
We're getting swatted, y'all.
We could only wish.
Do
Well, I
Earth-
mean, we're not going to say that early.
Earth-
We just only hope that many people listen to us at one day.
Do Earth-sized comets exist?
Oh, I'm sure.
imagine so.
Space is infinite, buddy.
I mean, can I give an example? I mean, I don't know
Sure.
if I can go off, but it's just things that blow my mind. This actually goes into religion, which we'll talk about when I want, you know, how big is God? And I was watching this show about, it was Stephen Hawking talking about how Einstein had a theory of, sorry, Matt, drinking is just fun. A theory about gravitational waves, whatever those are. We finally got instruments that could measure theoretically gravitational waves. So they said we need something big enough that our instruments can read it. So they looked around the universe for something that had happened and that to get waves from, and they located that 1.3 billion years ago, two black holes came together. And when oh, for crying out loud.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Cut him off. But
Matt is on his second beer or first?
Well, I had some water after that first
all
one.
right, good.
Keep
Thank
going.
God. But anyway, when these black holes collided, stop it.
I don't
What are you,
get it.
What are you, 12?
Yeah. I mean,
Anyway,
just
I'm
your
sorry.
guy
I'm
think
sorry.
dirty.
No, it's
I'm
you.
sorry.
But it emitted energy equivalent to 50 times every star currently burning in the universe.
Wait, hold on. 50 times every star burning. So it's like all the stars that have burned forever.
No,
50 times.
all the stars currently burning magnify their energy by 50 times, all of them combined.
Yeah.
And this
That's what happened when
If-
two black holes met in space.
yes, and that's how much energy they emitted. And I'm just saying, it's just that, I mean, not to go into religion, but it's like I go, all right. Supposedly, there's a being,
Yeah.
who spoke this universe into existence.
He had a big brain fart that
Well,
day.
well, no, I'm just saying is that it's so massive and so huge, and it's like, and when we think we're all sitting there beating ourselves up guilty because we did something wrong, we think this guy is really losing his mind. If you know I don't know.
Well, my guess on that, now I'm actually following you philosophically. Like, I've got a good reincarnation video on my YouTube at Beth Hagendorf that kind of goes into the philosophy of this, but I get it because if God is this thought being that chopped himself into a million tiny pieces, so he wasn't the only one playing in his play because he was just existing in the middle of nothing where everything was nothing and nothing was everything. And he chopped himself so many times, right? But then the little particle pieces, which are us souls creating, eventually Maya or the devil comes in, right? And which is kind of needed because you can't just have something go in one direction forever. It's got to come around, have the opposite pull, etc. And I think at some point, like this also probably we don't need to go deep into this direction of the Bible and Christianity, but like, with the fallen angels and when things kind of like, I'm sure God was like, oh crap, that was interesting. Didn't really mean for that to happen. And maybe that's when he just decides to have two black holes collide in space. And then he's like, all right, cool. Now I'm working with something completely different.
But I mean, I guess he divided himself up. Did he divide himself up just here? Because in this, we are a speck.
Well, yeah. I want to say when he divided himself up and chopped himself into pieces, which became souls. The whole point and idea is that they go back to him on their own free will and accord. And then, of course, it gets much deeper than that. Like, are those little particle pieces of dust that eventually evolve into minerals and then animals and then people and then back to God? I don't know. I mean, that's a whole different podcast that we should definitely have.
Because I want to know, is the being we call God more local? Is a thought that I had.
Like local physically.
I'm just saying maybe it's kind of like maybe the God we think about only created our galaxy, because all I'm saying is that I'm just wondering. I mean, because again, the God who created the universe, the more we learn about the universe, the bigger it is. It's insanely huge and expanding. I mean, when you're talking about that is the being that now gets involved and gets upset when you have a lustful moment.
Well, my God doesn't get upset about anything.
Well, I know. I'm just saying.
But I do love talking though like this. That all of our ideas, what our ideas of God could be or are. I mean, I like it.
But again, that's a whole other podcast.
I do get it. It's like battling gods of different galaxies, though. I get where you're going with it.
Well,
that's a good video
before
game.
we go back to AI, maybe
AI.
I do want to point out that in this religious debate, for those that are paying attention, South Park declared which religion was correct in the afterlife, and it indeed was the Mormons.
Oh, okay. So,
Yes, the
Mormons were correct.
Everybody, Rex is a Mormon,
Oh,
and that's why we will
Did I
talk
just
on
dox you?
today's.
What?
Oh,
Did you you
no,
knew that? I'm assuming.
you didn't dox.
I knew that, but I didn't know if you wanted that said.
Of
so,
course, today is
well, actually, she said it.
Today is the day we interview him as a Mormon and at me as the original Christianity, which is basically me and Rex are two flavors of Christianity. And anyways,
and we
may or may not get into it today because we have so many topics. But no, you didn't dox him.
No. Actually, we weren't actually thought we were going to get to religion because I had brought up so many subjects just from my trip that we were talking about. We haven't even got to those yet. Religion can be a whole nother
Guys,
podcast.
we're live producing with you. How do you like it? No, I'm kidding.
And we don't use the M word anymore, by the way.
Oh, Mormon? It's Latter-day
Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, or Latter-day Saint, or member of the Church of Jesus Christ.
LS.
So what if you say Church of Jesus Christ and just kind of cough your way through the last part and people just think you're a regular Christian?
You are a regular. So that's what's funny. I wanted to clarify this. Rex and I would both consider ourselves Christians, but other Christians wouldn't consider Rex and I Christians.
Right.
And I, being from a different faith, like mine, I consider original Christianity. My church is called Self-Realization Fellowship. Rex being from the Church of Latter-day Saints.
Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day. The reason they say that.
Sorry, the Church of Jesus Christ.
There's a lot to say. But the problem is that people were thinking that the church worshipped someone named Mormon. And actually, Mormon was a derogatory term that was used against them, and they just kind of adopted it. And so you know what? We need to let it know that it's in the name. It's a church that worships Jesus Christ.
We got to draw a hard line. Are we diving into Mormonism or AI?
And let's go to A. Well, he dove into both.
I gotta say that you're identifying as a Christian, and the Christians they're saying no, that's not right. You're also identifying as being vaccinated, but the vaccinated are saying, I don't know if you get in vaccinated status. So
well, you can't say the Christians. There's what Rex and I want to point out is. Did you say
there's over 45,000? I've heard there's over 45,000 different Christian denominations in the world.
Yeah, the ones here
just Christian.
How many
colloquially? My friends don't like hearing that.
How many different kinds of vaccinated are there?
Well, I think there's vaccinated and unvaccinated and identifying as vaccinated.
Oh no, there's Johnson & Johnson.
Oh, okay.
There's Moderna, Pfizer.
But you see, there will be factions that split out as it continues.
I will be traveling soon, so my mouth is staying zipped on that.
Okay. Well, anyway, yeah.
I'll be traveling to some countries that
just wear the shirt
identify
and you'll
as
be
vaccinated.
You'll be fine.
But anyway, one of the reasons I like the church that I joined is because they do not have hostility towards other denominations, which quite the opposite. A wonderful story. I know that in Salt Lake City, which is of course predominantly, Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, there was a Catholic cathedral, and it was falling into disrepair, and they didn't have the money to repair it. Our church repaired it and for them. You know, it's like they don't hate and judge other religions, which I find very appealing. It's like the minute somebody judges my religion, I go, yeah, you know what? You just kind of made yours less appealing.
That seems very un-American of them.
What?
To not hate the opposing tribe.
Well, yeah, it's not. It is not American, I guess, but it's a very American religion.
Okay, back to AI.
So yeah, because I do want to talk. I could. I mean, the thing is we talk religion. I'll go on for hours. But yes, I felt like we started. We keep trying to get back to it. So one thing about the AI that you had just said that I had thought of is I just watched Mark Roberstein. Sorry, I got his last name a little bit wrong on Joe Rogan, and he's the guy that invented the web browsers. So he's like a tech geek, and he said the same thing that you're saying your friend said, which was, trust me, AI is not what we need to worry about. And he commented specifically on the Google engineer that reported the AI as being sentimental and saying he was lonely.
Sentient.
He could be
Thank
sentimental
you.
too.
I mean, maybe it was sentimental, but
First, you got to be
big deal. Is
Sentient.
Hey, what is
First,
it?
you got to be sentient, and then
What-
you can
hold
be
on.
sentimental.
Sorry. I'm going to look up the definition of sentient and read it back to us here in a second.
It basically
But-
just means conscious.
Oh, okay. So what he said was, though, his answers when you asked him, like, hey, bro, are you lonely? And he gave him a very sentimental, sentient answer. He's programmed that way. He basically simply said, if you asked him the opposite question, he will give you the right answer as well, like the opposite answer, what he just said. And he said, no matter, actually, Matt's wife, Gina, brought this point up that I was talking to her and I was telling her this. And he said, no matter how hard we try to program our AI, they will never be able to fold our clothes. And your wife said, isn't that funny though? They could drive our cars. And I was like, yeah, no, they're, AIs, there's I think some Ubers out there running around right now, picking up and dropping off passengers, no driver, no real human driver, I think. So how is it that we can program AI to drive cars, but not fold a t-shirt?
They can't, I mean, he's just saying they haven't solved the clothes folding problem yet.
No,
No,
they
but
already
he's a
probably.
brilliant guy, and
I
he doesn't think we're close to it at all. Sorry, what were you saying?
Well, I just want to say that I disagree with that guy. I think he's really smart. He knows more than I do. But my gut feeling is I've lived long enough to hear people, experts, say this will never happen. We'll never see this, only to see it again and again. And with AI, because it advances so quick and the horizon on that frontier is constantly coming to us quickly and quicker every time because of the advancements, and they compound on one another. I do believe that before I die, if I live to be ripe and old, and certainly in my children's life, AI not only will be folding clothes, but you're going to have to ask somebody, are you AI or a person?
Yeah, because you can't tell. I think what's going to happen is, like you said, it advances fast enough. Well, to this guy that Beth just referenced,
Mark.
He's saying that software engineers fully understand what happens on the most sophisticated AI we have today, from like the way it's coded to like what it actually can create and produce, and all of that from beginning to end. It's fully understood. But since we're programming like the ability for it to create and basically write its own code, and it'll eventually write its code and write in a code which we like if encrypted, for example, it can create an encrypted code and write it. We programmed it to do that. We could eventually understand how it did that, but it would take us a very long time, much faster than it can create and progress. So it'll advance at a rate that is faster than we have the ability to follow. So eventually it'll get so far out ahead, we're not going to be, it'll be like a mystery to us. And it'll be like a toddler trying to mess with a desktop or trying to figure out how a computer program works. They'll never going to get it right. Right? So that's where I think this is headed. And we're going to think it's conscious and sentient, even though in reality it's just a cold, calculated computer with no soul. We just don't know how it works because it's moving much faster than our understanding. We're never going to be able to figure out how it works. That's what I think is going to happen. But I'd be curious, you said like we don't have to worry about it. Well, I mean, the other side of that is what about them giving us abundance? Like, if like driving the cost of labor down to near zero may sound bad for like, and it may disrupt the economy, but in reality, it's going to give all of us an abundance of goods and services.
And time. And I don't know if some people even want the abundance of time.
Well, it's funny because as I was watching the podcast you guys did, I grew up in upstate New York, and in the late 1800s it became a resort. And which I never even put it together. The reason that they started having resorts in the late 1800s is because of the Industrial Revolution. Before steam machines and whatnot started to take over, people worked all they did was work. But because of the Industrial Revolution, people had free time, and they started to have vacations, and they started to have weekends, and the 8-hour workday was 8 hours of work, 8 hours of leisure time, 8 hours of sleep. And I think it was Henry Ford that started that. Might have been someone anyway. But people had free time, and what it was talking about was the connection was that now we've gone so far that we have so much free time that we're just going crazy. And that was when you guys were discussing, I think, gender identity, and because we have now we can literally worry about these non-issues.
Well, look at the eons that we waste on social media.
Oh, gosh.
With what we have now of just derping on a phone all day, scanning Facebook, Instagram.
Yeah, it was only 200 years ago you were just trying to feed yourself.
Yeah, and now you're literally just waiting to die. You're literally just looking through pictures going, well, I'm going to kill this afternoon.
Yeah, I think we could be taught to do with our time, but it would take some major program. Well, I guess because our governments don't actually care about our mental health or well-being. But I mean, you could implement into communities because you're right. Like no one in America even knows how to retire, right? Like they don't. They actually just keep working because they don't know how to be happy outside of their own job or their job identity. But I mean, gosh, for those that do have the hobbies, like for those that do, and when we say hobbies on that one episode, like creating, like whatever, whether your hobbies like playing the guitar or, sculpting something with a knife or painting.
Inventing.
I mean, anything. Yeah. Once people really find a few things like that, man, humanity would be in bliss and abundance.
But it's just like any other echelon. There's a few that do that, and there's this mass portion that will never do that.
It's those that need to be shown. And
be shown, but you can show them.
Even told. They like to be told.
Go to a guy under the bridge and tell him everything that he needs to do to change his life. And if he does it, 100% guaranteed it will change his life. Will he do it? Do it to 100 people living under a bridge. Go tell them. I'm going to tell you exactly what to do.
But the people on the bridge are exactly like not the people that you should.
Yeah, they're living in victim mentality. They don't resonate with
it's an example, but extrapolate that out to the bigger picture.
Well,
you
I was
don't
talking
get
about the mass
white. It's not, clear cut corner. You have a gradient there.
I was talking about the mass population.
Yeah, but see, there's millions of people on welfare. All they want to do is sit on the porch and buy beer.
They know no different, though. I mean, seriously, no one. No, I do think about them a lot because sadly we're in a small town where exactly where they live and it's generational and it's sad. It's heartbreaking. And I was sitting there wondering, like, how many of those guys or girls, if they had a parent say, so it's a really big world out there. And like, you could kind of do whatever you want as long as you just, do this first, do this next. And I mean, meaning like you're going to go through school, you're going to play all these societal games, like really actually talk about the game of life with them. They never had that. They just know that they want to go buy a Black and Mild at the gas station because that's all they know.
They need to hear it. I agree. I'm just telling you, don't be surprised when the majority of it hears it, goes in one ear and out the other, and they go back. That's just the way, because we live in a very free country. I know people argue against that. There's so much discrimination out there, but the truth is, if you grab a root and growl and go after it, you can get something. There's a reason. There's a few people at the top, this big pyramid, and then this line at the bottom. And that was here long before I was born. It's going to be here after I die. That's the way it is. But I agree. You need to spread that message to everybody you possibly can. Education is the key. Don't be surprised when nature still exists, is what I'm saying.
Classical education, not necessarily the school education, but you just said something about, I lost it.
Stop me if I've told this story before, but it's something that I thought it was one regret I still have. It was 2001. I was in New York City taking a subway over to Brooklyn, and I had my 35 millimeter camera. I was living in Austin on a farm. And there was this young guy sitting across from me. He kept looking over, probably 16, 17 years old. If it's relevant, he was a black kid anyway, but he kept looking over. And I finally said, "What?" I said, "I'm just I'm admiring your camera." And he's really into photography. So he came over and I had a little album of pictures I'd taken on the farm. And he said, "Well, I've never been out of the city, so I've never seen anything like that before." I was like, but he said, "I have pictures too." He said, "This is a sunset I took from the roof of my project building."
Oh my God, it breaks my heart.
But it breaks my heart. But the thing is, he was this bright-eyed, ambitious. He loved photography. He was articulate. And I'm like going, you're not what I thought came out of projects. And I'm like, I'll guarantee you there's a mother in his home, whatever, who, to your point, in the middle of whatever world he's living in the projects in New York City, she was encouraging this. And I wished I'd given him an email or something like that and said, like, look, when you're 18, give me a call. I want to show you a farm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I regret that I didn't do that, but I just hope that he continued that ambition and that brightness and pursued something out of his project.
Yeah, I was a sociology major, and I remember my teacher told us about people that have never walked further than 6 blocks in inner city Chicago, and that really has stuck with me the rest of my life to think about like how far people don't know, like they don't know anything but a concrete jungle. I did want to say something on the bright side, Matt. I remember it came back to me in regards to the people, thinking it's hard to make it in this country. Thankfully, I feel like the majority, like on the news, at least I see it a lot, especially with immigrant communities. They do know you can move to America and make a living for yourself. Or
Why do you think
could
they
be
risk
whatever
their
you wanna be.
life in a boat?
Well, I mean, in fact, white people are, I think, the second to poorest ethnic group in America. Like so many of the immigrants, especially I think the Indians are the number one wealthiest, primarily because they become doctors. But I mean, so many people I do know, and you'll hear them interviewed like on the walking on the street or whatever, street interviews, say, no, love America. This is the country of opportunity. You can actually create something as a self-employed person.
If you knew nothing else, just judge a place by how many people are clawing to get in, not out. There's a reason for that.
Millions trying to get in here.
All right, Russ, were you satisfied that we scratched your AI? I mean, because we passed over it so fast.
The next thing is we came up with our own made-up solutions. I wanted to know if there was anything said about what are the actual Comet solutions.
Oh, no, basically that wasn't the discussion I had. Basically, he was saying, everyone thinks we need to fear comets. He said, no, we have contingency plans. We passed over that for him to say the one thing, if you want to be afraid of something, the one thing we have absolutely no power over or control is volcanoes. But the point again, not a super volcano. That's like a planet killer. So it's the one that happens every 200 years that cools down the planet to a point where you will have an entire year with no growing season. And they says that will be worldwide famine. Because everyone's got food put away. Very few people have enough food put away for an entire year.
And what can you do for a volcano?
Well, you said there's something, but according to him,
I forgot.
There's nothing you can do for a volcano.
My solution was have hydrocarbons stored and prepped to be able to convert to artificial sunlight to grow plants indoors. So if you for example have a generator that can power UV lights, you can grow plants in a Connex box.
Oh, they do it all the time.
Yeah,
but there would have to be, again, in order to do that globally, to
no. We're being selfish here.
Okay,
he said, how can you or I prepare for that? So I'm coming up with like an individual solution.
You
don't have your own generator and 5 million gallons of gasoline. Well, then
Well, watch The Martian. You can grow food in your own poop.
Or you just have the guns to take it from the people that did prepare.
Hey, we love and peace, brother.
Yeah,
oh, okay. That's a bad prep plan.
Yeah. It's more like having it to defend it from those that didn't prepare, not taking it from.
That's true. I was wondering why you didn't have your computer out here.
I mean, would you like to hear the solution to volcanoes?
Please.
Yeah, and after that, we're going to follow up with our own self-produced super volcano little minute thingy that we made. All three of us made it. Yeah, sorry. Keep going, Matt.
Okay, so maybe it was when we were making that back in the day. Everybody knows that the center of our Earth is a lot of hot molten rock whooshing around. And
that's actually not proven, but go ahead.
Okay, well,
it's seriously like there's
devil's advocate.
Okay, let me just say everybody knows
we're 99%.
Everybody
liquid.
thinks that weird glowing blob stuff that comes out of volcanoes is molten rock. It's called lava. If it's below the ground, it's called magma. And so without Russell chiming in, let's just say that exists underground before it comes up. So there's magma down there, and this hot molten rock is there, builds pressure, plates are shifting, and it finds ways to come up. It's basically an energy release. The Earth has this energy built up, and volcanoes are a way that it releases energy. One of the suggestions was that we should, and they're doing this or they're working on it, to drill a lot of massive holes in the ground and get down where it's very, very hot and be using that heat energy to generate electricity and power for our cities. And when I heard that, I thought, man, what a brilliant idea. I used to work in the oil field, and we had a hole that was, I had like 19, I want to say 19,000, maybe that's crazy, 19,000 feet.
No. That's
yeah,
reasonable.
you're 19,000 feet deep. And you worked in the oil industry, and it was hot down there. It was very hot. And I like hot springs, and so you don't even have to go in some places. You don't have to go 19,000 feet. But if we could find these areas that have this pressure built up, and scientists do know where they're like, well, this is kind of a hot spot. Something could happen here. If we could drill and tap into that energy for something the size of New York City, Chicago, L.A., whatever, and be pumping that much water down there, generating steam, which is turning turbines, condensing it, and pumping it back down, and just sitting there sucking that energy out of the ground. We obviously couldn't do it, maybe a year before a volcano erupts. But if we had 50 years of that, we could slowly bleed some of that pressure off
in certain areas.
In certain areas, so that it wasn't this big event. So it's kind of an interesting thought, because it is energy. It's not the sun. It's totally sustainable. It's not polluting anything. Why are we not doing it? And I guess the reason we're not is the technology for getting that deep and setting a system up down there to generate that steam, maybe. But it for all the things that we do in the oil and gas industry, it doesn't seem that hard.
But I'm pretty sure we're going to be the El Salvador's on it, because the president said they're going to. He calls it volcano energy. It's geothermal energy, and they're going to use it to mine Bitcoin. They're on the Bitcoin standard there.
Okay,
so.
It's used in certain areas, but there's also volcanoes created by friction too, not just from the sun of the earth.
Yeah, right. It wasn't a fix-all, but it was a thought.
Well, so what you're saying is it does cool it down. It doesn't actually bring any of the magma up out of there.
No,
but it reduces the energy. I think is what he's referring to.
Because it cools it down.
Yeah.
And I guess you could say, if it's hotter, it's expanding, taking up more volume. So if it's cooler, it'll be less likely to blow because it's taking up less volume.
It's an energy gradient. And it gets to the top and it blows out. We're saying, hey, let's take that energy off before it has to come up here.
Well, that's why they're always glad whenever there's a small earthquake in California, because it released some of the energy. They're waiting for it to release a bunch at once, but release a little at a time and we'll be okay.
Yeah, it's like people trying to quit something,
A little at a time.
Little at a time. Or do something. Work out. Little at a time.
So it's not even the volcano eruption that's dangerous, though. It's just the ash in the sky that clouds the sun.
He said the main problem is that it would cool the planet to an extent that there would be no growing season for a year, and there would be it would cause famine. Which again, the last time it happened was 1815. 1816 was a summer without a year without a summer. And
the last time it happened was
15 was the volcano, and it cooled 1816 to the point when there was like no growing season apparently.
And how did people survive?
Well, apparently a lot of them didn't. I see, because with this podcast came up way earlier than I expected. I was going to look it up, but we can do some research and find out about it. But if you just put in a year without a summer, and 1816 or 1815 should pop right up.
Well, it may have been just a portion of the like regional to the volcano.
I don't believe it was. That was why it was. That was big enough that it was global. Because and we even did Krakatoa, which was 1880 something or other, and it didn't. It cooled the planet for 5 years, but it wasn't severe enough to actually destroy growing season. So it was the 1815 would have been bigger than Krakatoa.
Is that the one that caused the mini ice age?
No, mini ice age. They don't even know why that was caused. That was 300 years long. That ended in the 1850s, but 300 years before that. That's just kind of like people don't like to admit it, but the Earth just tends to cool. And
that wasn't climate change caused by capitalism.
Well, we did start burning coal in the early 1800s. So I think we entered the ice age because we started coal in the 1800s. Well, the mini ice age.
I've got a related question, and that is, can any of you guys actually describe what pollution is?
Yes, no, not enough.
Well, everything we have comes from this Earth. So we change its form into something ugly that doesn't help sustain life. It poisons plants, animals, and we dump it back in the environment where it poisons plants and animals where it wasn't before. Unlike like Terra Lingua, Texas, where mercury is in the ground by the tons normally, it's not here. So if I took mercury from Terra Lingua, which is not pollution, and dumped it here, it would be pollution.
It became pollution.
Yeah.
Email it to yourself.
So we've lost the Hagendorfs. But no, so obviously you have a definition.
No, well, in this day and age, we define pollution as carbon. You are a carbon-based life form.
Mm-hmm.
So you are an actual sort. You are pollution.
I am a pollutant.
You are the carbon that Bill Gates would like to reduce on this planet.
Yeah.
And that is that is the the Georgia Guidestones population limiting was about. But my understanding, what you never hear is that we had previous carbon-based life forms form algae or plant growth or whatever, and then that all got buried, and that's what we drill for and bring to surface in the oil field, the hydrocarbons. Now, it took millennia to make those, and so we're just willy-nilly pulling them to the surface and burning them over a course of decades. So that's a very unnatural cycle for the Earth, seeing as it took forever to make them, and we're just putting them back in the atmosphere like really quick. Mm-hmm. So it's probably a bad global experiment we shouldn't be running, and that's my understanding is why we shouldn't be burning fossil fuels in the way in which we are. And I do think I'm an advocate of nuclear power. So, but if you bring up so that's why I asked what pollution is. So is it like the plastic bag that's blowing away, or is it the exhaust out of my truck?
Probably anything you don't want. As a matter of fact, the same person I was talking about, who we talked about climate change and whatnot, who said we may be causing climate change, but we can't prove it. So don't believe anyone who says they have the data to support it. But he says one thing about this climate thing is that we're not putting the resources to stuff that actually needs to be dealt with. And he said was plastics. That's number one. Yeah. The oceans, he said, it's a big problem.
We should be mining plastic. It's a source of energy.
Well,
we should be cleaning the ocean up and using that stuff as fuel.
We should, whatever it is to do. But the thing is, that's a bigger concern. The amount of plastic in the ocean is a far bigger concern than climate change.
Yeah, and what Russell had said, also covered with Mark Robinson interview, is nuclear energy. Everybody kind of has a bad taste in their mouth when you hear it. Well, that's because we're thinking of it like the 1950s car versus the Tesla car today. Nuclear energy would be the cleanest, greenest way for us to power the planet. And there are so many nuclear experts that are now finally being interviewed. And Joe Rogan's actually making a point to get at least one or two of them on his podcast soon. Because if you actually are pro-climate, you would be pro-nuclear energy if you were able to hear an honest argument for nuclear energy. But back to you, Matt. When you say plastic can be used as fuel, plastic stinks and it looks weird when it burns. So how would that work?
Well, it's bound up energy. They took a hydrocarbon, linked it together, and polymerized it, and you have carbon bonds sitting there. And it's energy. I mean, you can, if you go on YouTube and watch some of these dudes that are distilling it, and this is not the way to do it, at least on large scale. They just build a fire under a pot, stuff it full of plastic, close the lid, and they condense everything that comes out. And the first layer is like this wax that they use for candles. And at the end, they've got a material that is similar to gasoline.
We're getting our show ready that we made. So basically, it's not as sexy. Like, not all energy is sexy.
It's energy that's there, and there is. We have a lot of smart people, and there's technology that maybe could take advantage of that. But I think nuclear is the way to go, and geothermal is a way to go. But nuclear, we just have to learn our lessons from things like Fukushima, Chernobyl. I mean, those are pretty big deals, and so we have to take that into account and learn from those lessons. But there's also, what is the deal with thorium? There's and chemistry. Yeah, I'm a chemist, but chemistry is a big field, and I don't know much about nuclear chemistry. But I think that you can use thorium quite safely, and that, if I knew we were going to talk about that, maybe I could have read up on that. But nuclear is the way to go. It just is.
There's another aspect to nuclear, and this is one of the which I don't know if Russell hasn't touched on, but in UXO, I get to encounter a lot of cool things. One of them is to work in Massachusetts when they're building a fusion reactor. We've completely lost that whole area.
What fusion?
No, I'm saying in
Massachusetts.
Yeah, in Massachusetts, I worked on a job where we were preparing the ground for them to build this fusion reactor. It's not finalized; they haven't got it yet. But if we can, what's the word I'm looking for? Make fusion functional. If we can make a fusion power plant, it like answers so many questions. There's no radiation. What's the in fusion? What's the byproduct? You know,
I'd have to read up on it.
Okay. But I mean, the big problem with nuclear is we use fission now, which creates a lot of radiation. But fusion, which is far more powerful than fission, is no radiation. There's no harmful byproducts. That's what the sun is a fusion reactor. We're getting closer and closer and closer to actually having fusion energy on the planet. If we develop that, then problem solved. Absolutely, there's no downside really to fusion power.
Nuclear first, then that.
Well, nuclear fusion is nuclear, but there's fission nuclear and there's fusion nuclear.
Yeah,
Right. We're fission.
Right now, we need a fission reaction to create a fusion reaction. They're trying to develop ways of creating fusion without fission.
Well,
Electromagnets have said there's something with that. I don't know.
You don't hear this often in politics.
the very old systems that gave nuclear power a bad name, like were old. Like I mean, these like Fukushima was recent, but that was built.
No one died from Fukushima, though.
That was built forever ago. The nuclear plants we build now, like the default state is, if it loses power and it stops being maintained, it goes into a state of dormancy. Like we can design them that way. So there's actually no like meltdown danger.
But why don't we have dirigibles? Because the Hindenburg blew up. The Hindenburg was supposed to be carrying helium, but they had hydrogen. If it had been helium, we'd probably still have them today, but it was such a film spectacular, no one was going to ride on them ever again.
I would. They're cool.
So let's talk. So. Yeah, tell the audience what a dirigible is. Guys, imagine having this.
I would so love to have. The Goodyear blimp's probably 110 feet long. The Hindenburg was 800 feet long. It was like a building flying in the sky.
Party in the sky.
Exactly.
But how fast?
It's about
84 miles an hour.
Oh wow!
Wow, that's pretty.
So you could wait. How fast?
84,
It
85
is like a party in the sky.
Yeah,
And you could have a veranda actually that you walk out on.
You could open up windows and the wind's blowing in.
We've got okay, guys. I mean, I have big dreams. We're going to amass wealth in this lifetime and get our own dirigible. I mean,
It's got to be
With your
we
face
did
on it.
They
state on
still have the hangers.
the first
the hangers
podcast.
are
We
around.
said
We
we're in a
could still
dirigible.
use those.
That was our dream from the beginning.
Yeah.
We told people we're in a dirigible over New York filming, as opposed to this.
I think they'd be so
shops.
cool to see. They were just magnificent. But the only reason we don't have them was because the Hindenburg was so spectacular. It didn't have to happen. And if it had been helium, we probably.
All right, so we're assuming everybody knows.
All right.
So we're obviously into science and explosives, and I've been working on producing shows around that, so we know very well what the Hindenburg is. But for those that don't know, Rex, what year did it and what happened?
1937. It was the maiden voyage. Well, it was flew in 36, but it was the first voyage of 1937, and it crossed the Atlantic. It was competing with ocean liners because it went twice as fast. So that was the main competition.
And it burned. It blew up over a city and burned.
Well, no.
I mean, let people
didn't,
picture
luckily.
this.
It blew up on the landing field in Lakehurst, New Jersey. It had blown up
like a fiery crash.
But now, interestingly, if you ever see the Empire State Building, that point on top of the Empire State Building, that was supposed to be a landing post for dirigibles.
Oh,
the idea was
you're
that
living the dream.
they could come right into New York City, and then they would walk down the Empire State Building and go.
How did you get here? Oh, we just landed in our dirigible in New York. That is a dream.
And everybody would see it. Be like right there. 800 feet long.
Well, unfortunately, they didn't take into mind that at 1,200 feet, it's real windy up there, so they couldn't land it. But anyway, so they would land in New Jersey. That's where it blew up. But it was filmed. I mean, that was the deal. There's a lot of film footage of it. And so everyone saw it. It was live broadcast on radio. Everyone heard it happen. So it was a really bad PR.
Did people die? I mean, the fire, I just remember it burning. So people did die.
But surprisingly, 2/3 survived. Only 1/3 of the people died.
Thank goodness.
And it's because the heat went up. It's like as it slowly settled, people jumped out and ran. So the heat was really going up, and they had time to get out. A lot of them were injured, but
Okay, so Russell's been working really hard. Thank you. I'm putting him on the spot. Somehow he took my producing seat a little bit, and I'm slowly going to take it back. But obviously, we're all into science and explosives. Matt with Rex and I had a TV show on Discovery where he blew up crap. So after that, we decided to produce our own show called Blown Away. I'm still working on getting it picked up with a network or a streaming service. And we created this pilot, and it's all about Krakatoa. And I didn't talk much about the volcano because we could talk all day about how awesome Krakatoa is. On this 46-minute pilot episode, though, I went into the volcanic explosivity index just to kind of go over like how big volcanoes are since we were talking about them. And then right after this, I think it goes straight into the super volcanoes. And we hired a cool voiceover guy, a guy I like a lot. So it's probably all him talking. But this is, if you watch the whole episode, Rex and Matt and I are all in it. But yeah, enjoy. And we're going to play it for those watching the video. But hopefully we'll all feel like Armageddon's coming if I did my job right writing this TV show. Oh, can you rewind it at like 28 something? Sorry. So first, before we jump into what a super volcano is, we're doing this like anime. Russ, are you starting from the beginning of the explosivity index?
This was a bad idea.
Sorry. So
around the world. Supervolcanoes are the deadliest explosions Earth
can you pause it and start at the
A 28.
left behind. The pyro
Perhaps we should save this to when it's all ready to go.
So sorry guys, when we switched to Video Falls audio, we left the Rodecaster, went to a Roland, and anyways, new tech. Can you start it at the volcano explosivity index, which was like 28 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay.
A 28 even or 28.
Well, where did you just start it?
28.
You better go for 28 minutes.
Okay.
One thing I wanted to
yeah,
was
please.
around the Hindenburg. The reason I brought up the Hindenburg was to say it's the same thing with nuclear power. It may be safe and technical, but because we've got Chernobyl and we've got all these bad memories, that's all people think about. So even though we could have safe dirigibles, we won't use them ever again because of the Hindenburg. In the same way, the people are anti-nuke because there were so many visual and so many accidents in the past.
Led by fear.
So that's
next speed across the ocean. Hidden in its deadly cloud were countless fragments of molten rock, smoldering at over 1,800 degrees Fahrenheit, hungry to engulf whatever the tsunami had left behind. The pyroclastic flow alone killed another 4,500 people.
It's Krakatoa.
Yeah, that's Krakatoa.
Now, volcanoes are measured on a scale called the Volcanic Explosivity Index, or simply the VEI. This is a 1. Eyjafjallajökull was a 4. Krakatoa was a 6. Tambora was 10 times more powerful than Krakatoa and was the largest known 7. And supervolcanoes are an 8. There is a supervolcano sleeping underneath Yellowstone National Park in the United States, and 19 others around the world. Supervolcanoes are the deadliest explosions Earth can create. They are millions of times bigger than Hiroshima. Yellowstone's magma chamber is so large it can fill Earth's rivers 8 times over. The chamber spans over 11,000 cubic miles. The most recent supervolcano eruption was Lake Toba 75,000 years ago. Some scientists believe it nearly wiped out the human race, leaving between 3,000 and 10,000 people left alive in South Africa. Supervolcanoes are real events. They occur every 100,000 years or so. Over 20 have been recorded in Earth's history. Yellowstone supervolcano has erupted 4 times in the past, roughly every 600,000 years. So Yellowstone is overdue. Since 2003, rumors continue to spread as activity at Yellowstone changes. Would the United States survive a supervolcano? That is a no. Before the eruption, there will be thousands of earthquakes. The eruption will trigger hundreds of other volcanoes worldwide. Furthermore, tsunamis will flood coastal areas and island countries. People will be burnt to a cinder. Billions dead from the poisonous ash cloud that will cover the planet. To follow, there will be a volcanic winter. Imagine a situation of worldwide famine. It's no exaggeration to say the human race would be in peril. On the bright side, scientists at NASA now hold bold plans to use geothermal engineering to help cool off the sleeping giant beneath us. Though those efforts will cost billions and will take thousands of years.
I love it.
Volcanoes aren't just all death and destruction.
Yeah, and when you see this video, I'm like, oh my god, we look so young. I got so sad. No, but yeah, that's really good. That's well
realize
produced.
I've never watched the show.
That's really good. I know, right? It's funny when you, in a way, like I forgot all of that. So we could have a fresh conversation about volcanoes and learn. I guess I have a bad memory. I don't know about y'all, but man, that was really awesome. I wrote all of that, and I have to say, I try to be non-biased. I researched a lot, and all of that is true.
Validates what my friend said.
Yeah, It does. So
for those
We have nothing to fear except
for those that actually are listening and weren't able to see that, the last scene. Sorry, Matt. It had Rex and Beth in it. That's a part of their show called Blown Away. So that was actually, I don't know what that was, but no one else, if you're listening, would know that.
Oh yeah, well I prefaced before we started that that's our show I'm producing and created with my producing partners. I got to shout out to them, Envy Studios. But sadly, you can't watch any of the pilot or any stuff that we create because it's all like internal until a network picks it up. But I think of the sizzle reel for the show is on my website, beth.tv. Yeah, no, that's cool though. Volcanoes are fascinating. Mount Krakatoa. The reason we did that, we chose to do that show because in 1883 when it erupted, for two reasons. It was the loudest sound ever recorded on Earth, but the sound was so loud it created a shockwave. And so obviously with mass explosives, we blew a bunch of crap that you could see on a high-speed camera, the shockwave going through. I think it circled the world, like the shockwave itself. It was either 3 or 7 times. Do y'all remember?
I don't remember.
I mean, obviously we cover it deeply on the show. 7 times, yeah. Imagine that, guys. Like wherever you are right now, and something blows up, it creates a wave. That wave travels around the world, over the ocean, through the other continents, over the other oceans, back to you, and again 6 more times. So that's how badass volcanoes can really be. It also, I'm trying to remember the biggest killer. I think it was the pyroclastic cloud. So you die in several ways with volcanoes. Obviously, the starvation and famine that would come from the clouds, but then you also have the immediate tidal waves and then the cloud of like heat.
Yeah,
it's called
fire.
the pyroclastic clouds.
Yeah. But that didn't kill the planet. Krakatoa wasn't big enough to cool the entire planet, is what.
Oh, so yeah. What was that artist's name? Edward Munich. There's it's the picture of the Scream. So if you're into art, guys, in 1880 something, there was a picture called the Scream, and it's got the red sky behind the ghost screaming.
That was because of Krakatoa.
That was because of the summer. Wow, Rex, I'm not the only one that has a memory of a gnat. Like, I mean, it's funny because we talked about it on the TV show that we filmed.
That was a while ago.
And you're learning it for
Figure
the
you
first
guys
time.
would know more about it. Matt's like shocked that everything he just said was on a show he was actually on.
I know all of us forgot.
I remembered it.
Yeah.
Well, but again, the fact about Krakatoa that I've always is that shockwave and all. It was audibly heard 3,000 miles away. That just blows my mind.
Oh, that's kind of like the biggest awe fact. Yeah, so if you're a science geek, Krakatoa is too bad I can't say watch our show because we basically bring all the awe factors. It's called Blown Away. But the number one awe factor, because it's got like about 15 different world records, was the sound.
Yeah.
And it traveled. Well, actually, we actually then taught our viewers about decibels and sound, I remember.
Which I didn't know a decibel was named after Alexander Graham Bell.
Decibels are also exponential. So, like when you're measuring things, same thing with actually earthquakes. They're exponential, meaning like to the power of 2. To the power, it's not linear. Anyway.
Yeah. So there.
So Rex, on your travels, yeah. I want to talk about that. In what was it? Global warming, climate change. You had more to
The discussion I had with my friend about it.
Yeah.
Well, basically, it says that we may be causing climate change, but there's absolutely no way to prove it. There's no way to verify it. All the and if you hear everyone say, "Well, follow the science," says it's bunk. We cannot prove that we are causing climate change. It can't be done.
It's interesting because I'm back to Russell. It makes sense that it took so long for all this oil to be made, and now we're just instantly pumping it back out in the cosmos of time. If you look at it in a perspective, we're doing it quicker than it was put there. But I do have maybe a elementary stupid question about hydrocarbons that maybe Russell you can answer. And I mean, I was limited time in the oil field, but we're always told that there was dinosaurs and trees and swamps and they died and it got covered up and it gets pushed way down in the ground because, like I said a while ago, 19,000 feet underground is where we were getting stuff from. And you're like, yeah, no, that's normal. How come it's not continually being made? So like, was there one event? It was like, tell you what, we're going to mash the earth right here and make all the oil we're ever going to have. But yet life was going on. Like, right now, there's trees out there dying and they're falling down. They're being covered by dirt and floods are coming and pushing it further down. Why is oil not renewable?
It is renewable. What you said is true. It is being made.
Okay, it's just not being made at a rate that's sustainable.
It's not being made at a rate in which we can burn it.
Oh, yeah.
Because we can get it at. So when when you think about like 19,000 feet, well, a good well isn't going to drill to 19,000 feet and have one reservoir there. I mean, it might, but a lot of the wells that I've been on, we had 3-5 layers of oil-bearing sands with like shale between them. So that's a lot of time between each layer of oil.
Right.
So
it is being made. It's just not made at the rate that we can, like, oh, wait a little while, it'll regenerate. It's not, we can't do that.
yeah, what is it, peak oil? Or, that's the mainstream view would be that it's finite and that we're burning it way faster than it's ever going to be created. And we're going to run out. That's the mainstream view. There is an alternative view that somehow we're not going to run out.
Well, there's a lot more of it than we admit, and if we do run out, it's not going to be for a heck of a long time.
Well, I think what's happened is we've looked harder. Mm-hmm. Like when you're drilling in 10,000 feet in the Gulf of Mexico, like that's not something we were doing 30 years ago. That's not something we had the technology to do.
Sure.
30 years ago.
So what about when you hear on the news, like in San Angelo or West Texas, we have more oil here than X over there, or we have more, but we're not using it or going for it. What's the truth behind that? What is that? That's just recently in the news. The people that are in the oil industry are mad that we're over there in Saudi Arabia doing fist bumps versus getting the oil out of Texas oil.
Politics.
Like, well, yeah, but I do. So that's what I'm saying. Like, that is the politics. So what is the true narrative? Or is there really that much oil in Texas?
Yep.
Why are we going over there to Saudi Arabia? Well, I guess I know the answer to why we're going to Saudi Arabia.
Well, so like the environment can actually tell a difference on whether the oil was drilled in a virtue signaling country or like Saudi Arabia.
Burns cleaner.
Yeah. So if we drill it here in America, drilling oil is bad. Virtue signaling against oil is good. So virtue signal against drilling oil, yet still have a car you want to drive, so then go to Saudi Arabia and buy it. So that's
people
the
that
game.
actually are,
that's the game we're playing. Yeah, we're not smart as.
So are we really at, like, because I like Matt's question, how sustainable is oil? But is that really the question, or are we just sitting on piles of oil that we're not even talking about?
Oil's not sustainable. What are you talking about? Over the long term,
the way you answer the question is yes, it is sustainable, but not at the rate we're burning it at. That's how I took that.
But the fact is, there's so much now. We're not even close.
If
to
the four of us were the only people on Earth driving cars, no problem. And also, what you said about what we're not doing 30 years ago, which is drilling 10,000 feet in the ocean. I like panning for gold, and I thought about it one day. I was like, What percentage of the Earth is covered by ocean? Is it 70%?
Yeah,
80?
around.
It's huge, right? That's the frontier, folks. Like, there are mountain ranges under the ocean with gold veins pouring out of them. These rare earth minerals that we need for cell phones and all this stuff. There is mountain ranges without goats running on it. There's sharks swimming around it. But they're just bare rocks down there. But we have to have the technology to get down there and mine it. Extract these minerals, but they're there for the taking. Most of the planet is.
That makes me sad to hear, because when you say, like, we have to have the technology to get to it, in my brain I immediately think only large, big funding companies will get there. Like the UN. Well, I don't want to put us in that boat. Like the UNIs, like the smaller average Joe and his small business company won't get there. It's going to be the big tycoon, the bright prospectus, and they've gone public, and they've got all the virtue signals right. The ESG score is good.
You'll reap the reward of it, because once they find this mega load of rare earth minerals, they're not rare earth.
But what you were describing is, I don't want to reap the reward of having some other natural resource to drive my car on. I wanted to do what you did, which is like pan for gold and find it myself.
Well,
like be the frontierman.
How realistic is it? I mean, it's fun, but
you've made it sound fun and romantic.
I love it. Yeah, and I'm not a big proponent of, let's start mining the ocean and blow it all up, and I don't like that either. But I'm just saying that when we need these resources,
it is 90% of the Earth. Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying. You're like, well, we're looking for these resources, but yet 90% of the Earth,
because they're talking about mining space.
Water.
They're talking about going to asteroids that are pure nickel and bringing that back. And I'm thinking to myself, we don't have to go to space. We just got to go into water.
But there's a lot of logistical problems with water.
A lot of logistical problems with going to space, too.
No, that's true.
And mining a bunch of a sustainable amount of ore.
True.
Which is war.
I'm lost in this conversation.
Well, I know, because it's funny, because I've had a friend that works for Shell that talks about this. They built some rig in the Gulf called Olympia or something like that. And it was like
Perdito?
I don't know, but I mean, it was billions of dollars just to build it. To your point, just to get the oil down there, it's like there's $1 billion rig.
Okay. Well, one thing that came up when you're talking about, like, you know, are we running out of oil and all that? When we look harder. Well, most oil, if you're just considering the planet, it needs infrastructure to get it to where we can refine it, right? And that's like until you have that, like, you can have this gigantic oil field. Let's say Antarctica. I mean, we haven't really spent a lot of time exploring that. But let's just say there's this really juicy oil field there. Like, how are we going to get it out of there and get it to the refineries where we can actually use it? Well, that all has to be developed. So
Pipelines.
What's that?
Pipelines.
Yeah, I mean, that all needs to be built, right? Or
that can't get hacked.
So what's happening right now, though, is I guess the term would be not abandoned, but lost asset. They're lost assets. Like, if you have an oil field that it's producing, but you can't actually take it anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
There's a better term than abandoned.
Man.
Anyway,
Biden,
Bitcoin is actually now changing the game, because a lot of these older oil wells that aren't producing a whole lot, and it's not worth getting them to the pipeline because the pipeline's been abandoned. They can actually burn them for energy on site on the well pad, and then generate or mine Bitcoin. And this is happening right now.
Instead of drilling
No, I'm
oil,
waiting for
you're
that. But
mining
I just
Bitcoin.
know you enough to know when's the joke coming in.
That's actually
joke.
There's no joke. There are Bitcoin people approaching these landowners or oil well owners and saying, "Look, you've got this
resource
that's
abandoned.
It's not abandoned. It's
What is it called? there's
it
a word
hasn't.
for
It's
this.
peaked. It's beyond.
It's sleeping.
It's not worth.
It's on a hiatus, but it's not. There's a better word for
if
it.
it's lost, but you know where it is, you just can't get to it. There's a word for that, and that's what it is.
Okay.
And they're
recovered.
So you're saying the oil that used to be pumped in these wells still gives off like a fart energy, and that fart energy is what the Bitcoin miners love.
They
and
can actually use that
Okay.
on the well pad right there. You don't have to move it.
Like those flares that are constantly burning all the time. You could use that.
Or just the remaining energy that's there. But I'm saying, but how is there Bitcoin?
So Bitcoin, in order to be mined, it needs like a lot of energy to keep all the servers going.
So-
from my understanding, Rex. So, I don't know if that's what you're asking. So Bitcoin requires energy.
Okay.
Mining Bitcoin requires energy, and
Speaking of which, can you take where you're at? Let me put in a small commercial. Speaking of, Russell has created our own Bitcoin node, so you could donate us and stream Satoshis while listening to
we don't know
Quantum
who
Bombs.
created the node, or if there
I'm
is a
sorry.
node, but there is a way to stream Quantum Bomb Satoshis. We count Satoshis around here, and we're fighting over Satoshis here at Quantum Bombs.
We have a very limited budget for our set and setup, and we are all hurting. So support the show in any possible way by streaming us Satoshis on any of the apps that you're able to do that off on Web3 world. And that's all of our tech geek speech right now. Back to what you're saying, Russell, about the Bitcoin mining.
So Bitcoin, you can convert energy into Bitcoin by mining it. And so if you have an energy resource that you can't do anything else with, you can bring a Bitcoin mining rig to that, burn the fuel for energy, and the energy runs the Bitcoin mining rig, and it can mine Bitcoin. Now you got Bitcoin, which is money. I mean, if you want to think about it, like, you can burn energy, mine Bitcoin, have Bitcoin, take your Bitcoin to the other side of the planet and buy energy with it. You can basically just convert it back into energy.
Or you
Thank
could
you.
cash it out for fiat currency.
Well, I'm just saying, thank you for letting me know that I absolutely have no idea what Bitcoin is now.
Yeah.
Oh,
Bitcoin is found in igneous rocks.
That's what I'm saying. Is like, are you panning for Bitcoin
So
now?
let me give it to you in layman terms, in case,
Please.
because I want to make sure I
No idea
understood
what
it
you're talking
correctly. But I am on beer, like 1.25 beers, so I'm already a little lost. But okay, so from what I understand, Rex, is it requires energy to mine Bitcoin, and
But
Bitcoin
mine
is,
it from
here-
where?
okay,
It's
hold on,
using
hold on.
terms that I can't
So,
equate
so,
to.
Okay,
to
all right. So, and this is incorrect, Russell, but it's just a physical analysis for Rex and our listeners. Is that when I mean mine Bitcoin, when you had those DOS computers and they had like blocks that were all building each other, some geek out there has a computer that's building these blocks and this calculation together, and that's actually mining it. But what I think he might have passed over or we missed is that while you're mining these blockchain transactions of Bitcoin, Bitcoin will say, I'm going to reward you for doing this because we need someone to be on the server live for these transactions, and I'm going to pay you in Bitcoin. So that's why people actually want to mine and host these transactions. Like a transaction taking place anywhere in the world could be hosted on somebody's blockchain somewhere else because that nerd wanted to make money. Not only are you making money, you're actually making Bitcoin. So then you could be a server, sets up this server that requires energy and does all these weird geeky things with these blockchains and calculations on a computer. And you're hosting other people's banking transactions essentially, and you're paying yourself in Bitcoin. And then now you could cash your Bitcoin out for simple cash. That's an easier way to understand it. But he said, or you could trade it for energy, which made it a little bit more confusing.
So you're burning old oil to fuel your computer?
If I have, yeah, no, that's actually a good way to put it. So,
You're actually more on top of it.
So the reason I said you would buy energy with your Bitcoin is because I'm simply pointing out that a lot of people are viewing it as a store of energy, Bitcoin being a store of energy. And, a lot of the cryptocurrencies are going to proof of stake systems, which don't require proof of work, which don't burn energy or have a computer running to actually mine the Bitcoin or to whatever currency it's on.
Was there about 70% truth of what I just said, or no? I totally missed it.
60%.
No, I did ask that because I felt like there's so much deeper that he just hit on.
So the reason I said you could mine Bitcoin with your oil that's it's a abandoned or cut off asset and then buy energy on the side of the world is because I'm simply saying you instead of losing that energy, you can store that energy in Bitcoin and then buy it on the other side of the planet. You could turn it back into energy. And there's a big debate right now in the cryptocurrency world. So I was actually thinking that like even within crypto, like it's just as divided as America, where like you have to hate the opposing side, and one camp's in Bitcoin, and there's like the everything else camp, and which is Ethereum, and Ethereum
and altcoins. You're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Ethereum's actually still proof of it's still proof of work, which it takes energy CPU to actually mine the coins, so it takes energy, right? It takes running a computer. What does running a computer take? It needs power, right? So this is how you convert energy into Bitcoin, because it just takes power to run these miners. And anyway, there's a debate right now about how bad Bitcoin is because it requires energy, and there's this flawed idea that like burning energy is bad, or like even though like the standard of living that we have increases with how much energy we consume. We should just figure out better ways to produce energy, like nuclear
or fission, not your
or fusion.
Yeah,
fission, not fusion.
Forget about like the fantasy technologies. Let's use what we already have.
Fusion's not fantasy.
Yes, but what do the environmentalists say when you bring up like
what do our lobbyists care about fusion? That's the question.
Hey, just getting money from somewhere.
So Germany's actually gone like full circle back to coal.
Have they?
What? Well, because Russia cut them off. Yeah. So there's these stories coming out now about Germany's like we're firing up coal plants, and Elon Musk is like, for God's sakes, why are you closing your nuclear plants? Please don't.
Wow.
We're doing everything.
So, like,
there's going to be some guy that's going to start talking to the coal miners, like riling them up.
So everything's so backwards now, and environmentalists are like pro coal.
Like it's so backwards when they could be nuclear and fission and fusion.
Again,
I'm sorry, fusion.
That's the Hindenburg thing.
Geothermal.
Doesn't matter how safe it is. Everyone thinks Chernobyl.
Okay, so that's actually one thing.
Which
like when I was
ancient
listening,
technology.
Yeah, so I guess that answered my question because I was listening to the Joe Rogan and Mark Anderson talk about nuclear, and they only discuss Fukushima. And again, I'm like we know about volcanoes. We're all big Chernobyl fans here because it's going to be on our TV show. It's also 20, 30, 50 million amazing facts that blow you away. And I was like, what a disaster that was. But it's basically the 1950s car with no seatbelts having a wreck, right? I mean, so
like a school bus
we don't know.
today.
We don't know what the 2022 Tesla Model Energy car would look like if there. Basically, it's actually safer than like any possible.
Well, what I
the
say is give
nuclear
us a
they're talking
chance to learn from our lessons.
Anyways, I don't want to jump back into nuclear, but I mean,
Learn from our mistakes. Isn't that how you move forward? You don't live in fear. You say, that sucked, that we screwed that up. Why'd that happen? How'd that happen? Fix it. Move on.
I know how we do that, Matt.
Oh.
We, on Quantum Bombs episode 7, the four of us, oh dear, the four of us make a pact that we will, with our massive amounts of wealth accumulated in explosives, fun, and television shows over the years, and maybe some philandering in the crypto markets, we'll create our own dirigible and park it somewhere. I guess maybe not in New York City, over one of those skyscrapers. But I'm serious, like you're saying, like the Hindenburg ended because of idiocracy. I want to build our own Hindenburg, and irony, because I love irony. I want to build another one. We'll name it the Hindenburg.
Okay.
And we're going to park it. And I don't know what city we're going to park it on top of.
Just don't paint it the same way the first one was. It should be fine.
Wait, so was the paint?
Well, the first one had a
It
swastika.
had a big
on it.
swastika on the
Shut
steering.
up.
Yeah, it was Nazis.
Hindenburg did?
It was Nazi Germany.
Yeah. See, before the war, we traded with them. You know that when they did renovations on the courthouse here in Columbus, and my dad was walking around the scrap pile. The gas valves that they pulled out of the ceiling, out of the floor, have swastikas on them because they bought them from Germany, installed them before the war.
Sure. Do you know what Fanta is? The soda?
Yeah, okay. I thought it was from Mexico.
No, Fanta was actually Coca-Cola. When we started being hostile with Germany, Coca-Cola didn't want to lose the market, but they couldn't have Nazis drinking Coca-Cola, so they invented Fanta, so that the Nazis could have a Coca-Cola product without Coca-Cola name on it.
Yeah.
It's all about
Don't
economics.
you want the
Fanta
Fanta?
was named for
It was just
made so Germans could
so
drink
Germans
it?
could have a Coca-Cola product during the war.
A Fanta for a fascist.
Fascist Fanta.
Oh.
I'm just saying, basically, it didn't. You think it's ideology? Coca-Cola's like going, crap. We don't want to lose that market, but we can't have Nazis.
Absolutely.
Can you imagine Hitler there with a Coca-Cola?
Yeah,
It wouldn't
right.
be. It would be PR nightmare. So they developed Fanta so that the Germans could still be buying Coca-Cola products without having Coca-Cola products.
Hey, I want to jump in here. And
CE5
jump-
event?
Yeah, because you just said the magic word, make a pact.
Oh, yeah. So
And I
that's
like that.
okay. And are we all for in? I mean, that was my idea. No one said, yeah, Beth, I want to hit it.
I've always
I've
wanted-
wanted a Hindenburg since I was a kid.
I've always wanted a dirigible.
Okay, Russ,
As long as
are
we
you
get to
going to
dress
be in
up
on
cool.
this dirigible with us?
Can't work.
What were we talking about? The CE5 or the
No,
dirigible?
well,
which is what I just learned.
Dirigible?
We made a pact that
Rigid
we're gonna,
airship.
with our all of our winnings in life that we're before all four of us pass, we've got to get in our own owned and operated dirigible.
Stream us enough Satoshis, and we're going to be making one of these blimps that.
I wonder what.
Actually,
no,
you can get
it's not a
one.
blimp.
You can get one right now. You can get a dirigible. It's a Zeppelin, a dirigible. I think its price tag's about $1.4 million, and it's really goofy. It's small. It's a starter Zeppelin. It's kind of like my tank. It's a starter tank. This is a starter blimp. Not blimp. It's a starter dirigible. But if you want us to send us enough to get 1.4 million, it has clown colors. We're going to change that. This thing's going to look sick.
Okay, so when this dirigible, the Hindenburg, was 800 feet, I just want y'all to answer this. How many feet are in 100 yards? Because I want it to at least be 100 yards.
It's like 300 feet.
Okay, so our second, because Matt's trying to get us into a baby dirigible, but we will get to this is our goal, pack, a 300
You know
foot
what?
dirigible.
Somebody stream us enough. We're going to have the 800-foot beast, and we're going to be rolling through New
So
York.
I actually do want to tell our
Hindenburg's
listener
almost 3
audience.
football fields.
So I'm assuming we've got like 1 in 4 people that are tech smart, like a little bit like my brother, already having their foot in the door with Web3. But so there's these smart apps for podcasting that allow you to donate, like we'll call them pennies. Like we have pennies on the dollar, they have Satoshis on the Bitcoin. So you could so these smart apps that are Web3 based allow the listener to set up their phone to automatically send Satoshis to every podcast, like X amount of Satoshis every hour. So we're able, thankfully, and we want to say we recognize that some Satoshis are rolling in, and we're very thankful and grateful for the people that are listening to us on those smart apps that are streaming us Satoshis. So what we're saying is, guys, like there's ways, not that I'm asking like the dummies, like the other three of us, like most of us are not in Web3 world yet. But there are ways that people set up and they listen. It's value for value, share. What my brother's more into the lingo, but you're rewarding your content creators without even having to do an effort. You just toggle your button saying, yep, I want to donate to everybody I'm listening to. And it really is a great way to support your piece. But Matt, back to your important CE5 event, because
Yeah.
this is, just so y'all know, I'm taking off to go to Europe, back home to London for a few months, and Matt is taking off with his family to go driving across America. The next podcast will all be remote. Don't you worry, we're still coming to you, but we'll be messing up the tech gear and doing remote podcasting. So when I return, Matt is going to...
So what was that, 10 minutes ago? That
Yeah.
I said,
So when I return, Matt has a very good idea for when I return.
it's so difficult to have an idea and finish it in this setting.
When I've been drinking.
This is a microcosm of the world. Too many people.
It is.
When are we going to have a coffee podcast?
Oh, let's talk about coffee now.
I can't drink that.
No, I mean drinking coffee, not alcohol.
Good Lord. I agree. I like
How
coffee.
about if we have a podcast with something I can drink?
Okay.
Rex is Mormon. He can't
Mormon
drink
tea
or
grows all
coffee.
over my ranch.
Or definitely not alcohol.
Yeah. So
That's
what
true.
I want to do is,
Oh, what?
Good afternoon. I want to welcome these
What are you
leaders
doing?
for
unbelievable.
coming in to have this very important discussion about some of the most pressing issues of our time.
Hold that thought.
I am Kamala Harris. My pronouns are she and her. I'm a woman sitting wearing
Actually, I have to say something, Matt. I'm so sorry. But she just brought up a subject I've been wanting. I just wanted to make this one point about pronouns. And you and I have discussed this. No one ever talks about it in the media or in person on the news. But a pronoun is usually never used in front of the person. So why in the world would
Rex.
I care if you address me as she, her?
Hand
I'm not
Beth
in the
her
room.
beer.
Oh, so that's when you would do it?
Yeah. I would say hand Zambia or whatever the shit.
Oh, well, most of the time, the point is like, these are my pronouns. I don't need to know your pronouns because when I talk about you as X or Y or whatever, you're not there anyway. So it doesn't usually matter. I'm not, okay,
But no, if
shoot,
it,
I
but,
had too
but,
much
but,
drink.
but if he
Look,
does say,
by the way,
hey Rex, can you get for another beer? She's like, I'm not a her. Don't call me her.
I came in that way.
Sounds
so
like you're-
honestly, I could care less.
You're
but I always-
anti-noun.
It's I basically
Yeah.
I,
You're
yeah,
anti-noun.
Nothing to do with the argument. I'm just like, why are we?
Unbelievable.
You don't say this in first person.
Can't believe I even associate with her.
Okay, back to C.
I told you, it's the Industrial Revolution. We now have gender pronoun issues because of the Industrial Revolution. People have so much time on their hands now.
Yeah, I can't imagine being offended if somebody said, "Hey, hand her his rifle, her rifle,
You know what?
whatever." I don't.
If someone can,
don't
jeez,
care.
never
You know,
mind.
we
Never mind.
back in the day, we used to have formal introductions on this podcast,
know,
and nobody dropped their pronouns. Were you guys anti-noun?
Okay.
Yeah.
You know what? I am.
You just said your name and then
Today-
just
Yeah, today I
Forget-
just said I'm looking at Rex, but I thought I should at least say who's at the table with me, and I could do pronouns. Matt and Rex and Russell all go by he, and him.
I
Don't-
like stud.
Well,
Stud muffin.
Who gives a shit?
And stud.
That's my pronoun.
you're gonna introduce us with our pronouns now.
I will in episode 8.
Him, her, him, he, him, Matt, he, him, Rex, he, him, Russell.
So, wouldn't that be funny if I
I don't
instead
care
of
if
saying
it's
all
just
three
dumb.
of them
It's
are he and
a
him?
solid waste of time.
It's so
It is.
tacky, and
It's-
you've got Kamala Harris doing it on a global stage. Like,
And her Instagram. Well, I mean, I'm glad you're pointing this out, Russell, because like you see it as baby steps. So I've watched it on social media, like meaning our vice president has had it on her Instagram, and then now you get to see it in real life. And
that
we're
was the
just
first
wasting-
time she's done it in real life.
Honestly, when it's stuff like that, I do see like, wow, we will go to war and get defeated. Like if this is really what we're teaching our offspring to focus on.
Did you just drop a bomb and without my pronoun?
I don't know. I just feel like,
Shoot
is
me
this
with his,
really
her,
what's
him.
important? Because I don't know. I'd rather learn about how to make seawater out into real water to drink or whatever. Just what way is north? Okay, Matt, take us to your desert for our CE5 event.
That was 30 minutes ago. Beth. I'm done trying to talk on this podcast.
Oh, no.
No, it's
Well, y'all got distracted with stupid blimp. The word I can't remember.
Dirigible.
Forget. Stop conflating ideas. We're talking about the CE5 again. Forget about your blimp.
Say
Okay.
rigid airship. Say rigid airship.
We're gonna stop talking about rigid airships.
No, because that's what it's all right.
okay.
Matt.
So while we were together before Rex showed up, we were talking about doing this podcast on the road. And there's nothing I like more than a good road trip. And sometimes I'd like to talk about some cool places I've been for people to go. If you're out there and you like to travel, I've got some good pointers. But one of the places I like going is out west, and I've got a ranch in West Texas. And so I thought we would get together and do a podcast from my property, but not just my property. It's all off grid. So everything we're doing out there would be run from the sun, which is kind of cool. But I want to also pack up a generator and get way out in the desert, which has this really alien landscape. It really sets I'm into art and juxtaposition of odd things. And I think it would be really cool to set a table and chairs, mics and cameras up in this flat, barren desert with mountains in the distance, and that golden hour of the evening, and conduct a podcast from there that'll be as visually enticing as it hopefully is audibly. Hopefully we have a coherent conversation there. And then that night when the sun goes down, Russell brought up the point we would do the CE5 event, which I just made the comment I wanted to catch, while we're all being quiet waiting for aliens, somebody fart. I thought that'd be funny. But but I have a pure heart like a child, so I probably will see aliens where you guys won't, because I think
My
a fart
heart
is funny.
will be in the right vibration.
I like
Yeah.
farts.
Yeah.
They make me laugh.
I like the scheduled podcast before we do the guided meditation, because guided meditation may not be such good podcast
My
material.
brother even is so serious about getting into the right vibration for the state to summon an alien that he has these ear clip he put on me that measures my vibration, basically measures your fucking
Coherence.
blood. Yeah, I'm sorry, not my blood beating, but my coherence.
Okay, well,
So we take this vibe serious.
I'm up
Matt.
for all of this. Like I said, I support all the alien stuff for $29.95 an hour, and I believe in them too. If you believe in them, want me to believe in them. But there's water for sale for $5 a bottle. No, I'm just kidding. I'd like to go out and set this up. So I did an invitation to invite everybody out, and Rex, of course, you're invited. I think it would be good October when. Well, he wasn't here when we talked about it, and he would just assume that I'm cutting him out. But you just weren't here.
You all three went to Austin. Didn't bother to tell me. I know. I need a special invitation.
Okay, so I'm
Would
making
you
a
feel like
special
fitting me in?
invitation. Rex is invited. It's recorded
Thank
today.
you.
Rex is invited, and the four of us, not the four of us plus people, but the four of us would go to West Texas and do a couple podcasts. We would film some content. We can shoot some machine guns out there, have fun, blow some things up. We'll take the camera and go around the old ghost town of Terlingua and look at the drunks on the porch and check out the Starlight Theater. And there's some neat stuff to look at. Good history, Rex. And then we'll conduct a couple of podcasts, maybe some from the deck of the Quonset hut, which is all solar, and then maybe one out in the desert. Well, it'll take a lot of setup to do it, but I think it'll be worth it for those who visually, like watching us. It would look good. And then film that night and just see what comes up and have a good time. So we do it before October 18th. Somebody said before.
Well, I said I'd get back from Europe in October.
Okay, so I would like to do it mid October. 10th, 11th, somewhere in there, if that works for everybody.
Less scheduling live on air.
What's temperature like out there in October?
So in October, it's
Heavy.
great. Yeah, it can still be warm sometimes, but usually it's 70, 65.
In the
during
The
evening.
day.
funny
It's gonna be
thing,
cold.
I thought you were
Yeah.
inviting the viewers to come with us, and I was like, okay, real CE5
Oh,
event.
was that where you were going?
Well,
No,
no,
I'm
he
not
did
inviting
clarified
the
it
viewers.
was
I'm saying we're gonna set the
just
cameras
four,
up.
It was just four of us.
So for those who follow us visually by watching the YouTube clips,
So you guys are going to yak about this. Can you at least tell the listeners what CE5 even stands for?
Close encounters of the fifth kind. So the first four kinds, not just so you can understand, is like, oh, I saw a UFO, or oh, I saw this or that. Well, the fifth kind of encounter with an alien is when you actually purposely summon them to you in a peaceful, heartfelt meditation, and they commune with you, they heal you. Because if you've spent any time actually researching aliens, you would know that they're probably our ancestors, like grandma and grandpa or something, in the astral heavens that have permeated into this dimension. That's my personal beliefs. Other people have many different beliefs, especially the gentleman looking at me. But anyway, so Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind is actually saying we're intentionally going to work with the aliens and hang out and talk to them.
And
They
we're not-
they might heal Matt's bladder. He has spina bifida. He has to use a catheter to pee.
Oh, you just-
and he always forgets. We'll have a
Call me
healing.
out.
It's okay.
It's a superpower.
We need to have this. It needs to be a podcast episode anyway. But Matt will have over friends that can heal, and so me and Rex and everybody will show up. And Russell, actually, all of us came oh yeah, you could work on us, Christelle. And then Matt's the only one that actually needs something to be healed, and he doesn't even get any time in with Christelle to get healed.
yeah, well, because I don't think about it. It's a problem, but
You
we're-
said
we're-
it on this podcast before. I didn't just out you.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
I was thinking.
Catheter user.
So we're
Catheter
no,
user.
and you know what?
Nasty
There's not.
disabled catheter user.
I know there's no catheters at restaurants. When I go in the restroom, they don't have a thing of free catheters for me. They don't make accommodations for me, and I just can't anymore. I'm just kidding.
No, Matt
we
makes
need
a
a
good
third
point.
bath-
We're
we need a
worried
third
about,
bathroom.
like Rat's actually a
Catheter.
legitimate person you travel with that is different in the bathroom. And so he's pointed out to me, like, look, he would never care, but we're worrying about bathrooms for all these other people. But like, there's like thousands of people, a lot more people use catheters and have your type of disability that no one gives a crap about.
Yeah, because I'm not out bitching and whining about it. But I wanted to say that when we do this event, that I don't want to drink alcohol when we go do that one out in the desert, and we're not going to do weird drugs.
That's low vibration, Matt. We definitely aren't going to drink.
That's right, and no drugs because people are like, "Oh, I bet they're going to see aliens, bunch of peyote out in the desert."
Well, we could do the peyote after, maybe.
You can.
I was like, well, I don't know.
I'm clean as a whistle.
Yeah. All right. Well, how are we at doing on time? We're going to end this.
It's time to wrap this puppy up. This dirigible. It's time to land it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can Russell say dirigible? I want to hear him say dirigible.
Dirigible?
There you go.
So, one thing that a lot of news has hit in the last 12 hours, but one thing that's been on the headlines, I will say, is that the White House doesn't. You remember, like, we're not sure what a woman is right now?
Oh, God.
Don't speak for me.
Well, right now, we don't know the White.
That's a woman.
So,
It's a real woman.
so all the headlines right now is the White House doesn't know what a recession is.
Oh, yeah. I did listen to some of that.
not kidding.
No, there actually
Really?
are reading.
Well, a recession. Who really says?
She goes, well, we've been working and listening to a lot of the business and, the people that know, like all the economists and stuff. They're like, and it's coming to an agreement that there may be some inflation.
Maybe some.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Everybody
Listen to some
feels
of
it
that.
in their pocket.
Yeah, stay tuned, and
They're
we can get into that.
okay, so that's coming up. Yeah, I'd like to talk a bit. Actually,
Quantum bombs.
our homework for next episode is to watch Matt Walsh's "What's a Woman" and talk about it because there's so much good stuff
I
there.
haven't even seen 2,000 Mules yet.
We talked about that when you were gone.
I know. I
Are
haven't
we on
seen
fair?
because they played it here
No.
in town. Oh.
Hey, I'm proud. My dad just finally texted me my billboard he made for me.
Yay.